So now let's go from the ridiculous to the sublime with an amazing interview with one of the most unique individuals ever in pro wrestling, Jesse the Body Ventura, who I was fortunate enough to interview for PWI at one point, and also got to know him backstage a couple of times at shows for WCW around the Halloween Havoc point when Bruno was the referee of that cage match with Muta and Sting and all those other people. What a guy he is. I've always admired him from afar. I think he's pretty doggone close to a genius, really, seriously.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I remember even getting Jesse to appear on the Pro Wrestling Spotlight, and this was his first appearance ever. And it was, for me, it was a thrill because of how great Jesse was on the mic and everything he had done. And he did a handful of shows with us over the years, and this was the first one, a big one. This is the time that he was contemplating a run for governor, right? And this was really historic for the show to have Jesse on, and I'm happy that we'll be able to review that.
Well, he was a mayor at the time of this clip, I believe.
He was the mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota.
Right.
That is right.
And what a talker he was. I mean, I could see why he was so great as a color commentator, because, he wasn't acting. That was Jesse Ventura. I mean, he had a gift of gab unlike few people, and a real intelligence and wit about him. He's indescribable. He really is a tremendous, I don't know what to call him. Iconoclast, maybe?
Very much so.
Some people say, well, he looks a little bit like, superstar Billy Graham, but he didn't act like superstar Billy Graham at all. Jesse Ventura was his own man. And, who else would show up on a wrestling show with a Plato's Retreat t-shirt? and if you don't know what Plato's Retreat is, I'm not going to repeat it here. So.
Right. It was a very famous hot spot for a while. Let's put it that way.
I think it's time to get right to this clip. Pre-governor of Minnesota, but at the time, just still a major superstar in film and everything else. Here is the one and the only Jesse the Body Ventura.
Jesse, I know you're a very busy guy, and you have been out of the professional wrestling business now for a little over a year. We still get calls all the time asking about you and what the circumstances were regarding your departure from the world of pro wrestling and the WWF. Now, what we have heard is that it was over a disagreement over a license for a computer game. Can you clarify that for us?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Vince likes to own his people. I think back in the 1800s they called it slavery.
Uh-huh.
Today it would be slavery with pay.
Yeah.
And no, what it was I own the rights to my name, and I can license it to whomever I want because it's me. And I was approached by Sega Genesis, the video company, to come out with a Jesse the Body Ventura wrestling video, which should be out shortly. I mean, it should be out as we speak almost. It's supposed to be out in October. And I was honorable about it, and I said, Vince, I'm going to do this. And he basically said back to me, you can't, that's conflict of interest because we're with Nintendo. But it really isn't, because if you're familiar with video games, Nintendo's an 8-bit, Sega's a 16. You can't interchange them. You either buy the Sega system or you buy the Nintendo system. And I was given an ultimatum that if I did this deal, that my job would be in jeopardy. Well, that's the worst thing you can say to me, is to back me into a corner, because I can be an animal when I get backed into the corner. And so I took it as a personal insult a little bit, and I called my manager, Barry Bloom, and I said, make the Sega deal fly. And so we did, and we signed a deal with Sega to do this video game, and the WWF in turn then I suppose felt that they had to let me go. So they did.
Well, we've been hearing rumors. There's always rumors in pro wrestling, as you know. The rumor mill is always hot with different speculation.
Uh-huh.
And what we've been hearing recently is that you have opened up discussions again with Titan Sports and the WWF about a possible return to the announcer's booth.
No, I can unequivocally tell you right now that's totally false. In fact, we haven't even I haven't spoken to the WWF on a business thing since way last spring. And that was over the fact, Vince and I had a bit of a gentleman's agreement that When I left the WWF, if I was approached by any other wrestling group to please give him a courtesy call. And so at the time, you're familiar with, Joe, remember when all that scuttlebutt was going around that Joe Pedicino had all this big money?
Yes.
Well, Pedicino approached me and made me a very lucrative offer. Well, it turned out apparently he lost the money or didn't get that big money, but he did make me a very lucrative offer, actually a better money than I had made with WWF, which wasn't bad because I was knocking down some pretty good money with them. And so I gave Titan Sports the courtesy of my manager did, Barry, of calling them just to fulfill our obligation to them and be honorable and say, hey, we've got an offer from another wrestling group. What would you like to do about it? And you're going to love their reply.
What was it?
They came back about 2 days later, and the response was, well, we're really not sure how we would use Jesse.
Huh.
And so the minute I heard that from my manager, I said, tell them, fine, we fulfilled our obligation. There's no further reason to talk, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I mean, they're playing games. I mean, I'm the best color man wrestling's ever had.
Well, you're not going to have any disagreements here on that part. A lot of people have said that, and I feel the same way, that your partnership with McMahon and the announcers booth for Superstars of Wrestling and the pay-per-views and everything else you did, there was no color man like you.
Yeah.
Now there's another group down in Atlanta, obviously Ted Turner's World Championship Wrestling, which is floundering right now. Have you ever talked to them about possibly going into to work for them?
Yeah, well, they're another real organization, too. They've spoken to me. They've made contact with me 3 times since I left Titan and now. And they make contact, and they'll call me personally, and I tell them, call my manager, Barry Bloom, because Barry's in L.A. He handles my career totally.
Yeah.
And which is something that's very unusual, as you know, John, for wrestling.
Yes, it is.
In fact, I was the first wrestler who brought outside representation in and made Vince deal with it.
Well, the business needs it.
Oh, absolutely it does. And but the Turner people call up, like, in fact, the last one was June. I get a call from Tony Schiavone. You're going to love this one. He calls me at home, and he says, Jesse, we want to upgrade our television. We're going to go after Vince. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're the best color man in the business. We want you to come and work for us. I said, great. I said, call Barry Bloom tomorrow. It was late in the night. And I said, call Barry Bloom tomorrow morning, and we'll be happy to listen to, any offer or anything from you. That's fine. And he says, okay. He gets Barry's number, all this, all that. Tony did. And, and Tony's a friend of mine. He never called. That's what the Turner people have done to me 3 times. They call up, they tell me they want me, and then they won't call Barry Bloom or make an offer or anything. So I think personally that Turner's not real interested in wrestling and that they're just blowing smoke.
Well, that organization certainly has lost most of the talent that has gone through that down there over the last few years, and including Ric Flair, who's now with Titan Sports.
Right.
So you're not adverse to getting back into the wrestling business if the opportunity was there and if the situation was right.
Well, you never say never about anything, but, to be honest with you right now, John, I don't even think about wrestling. I mean, I've got a movie coming out in a couple weeks called Ricochet with Denzel Washington and John Lithgow. I got the Grudge match that's doing phenomenally great right now, and I'm looking at it for sure. It's going to get picked up for another season, I think. And I also am the color commentator for the Minnesota Vikings every Sunday now. After 2 years of working with Tampa, I got the Minnesota Viking job, plus being the mayor. So to be perfectly honest, I don't even think about wrestling, and that's why I made the statement, there is indeed life after Vince, because I'm doing great, and financially I'm doing fine. And, I think it'd be more to their benefit to get me back than me needing to go back to them. And, and that's how I feel about it. I'm not bitter over it. I had a great 15-year career with wrestling, 11 in the ring and about 5 as a broadcaster. And it's catapulted me to many other, things. And, wrestling was a big part of my life, and I enjoyed it tremendously. But life does go on, and I don't lose any sleep over it. And, and actually, to be honest, I was glad I was out of wrestling when all this steroid stuff came down, because who needs that kind of publicity?
Yeah, I wanted to touch base with you briefly about that. I know we only have a few minutes left here. There is a major problem right now with steroids in professional wrestling, and the Dr. George Zaharian trial back in June, and there is a lot of talk right now that even more names will be disclosed in the next couple of weeks through stories that are about to break down in Florida. What do you feel should be done about steroids in professional wrestling today, Jesse?
Well, I don't feel that steroids are alone in professional wrestling as well as other sports.
Well, it's all sports, right?
Yeah. Basically, you want to talk about just steroids, and it's a cut and dry situation. In 1988, they were made a felony to use them, and it's that simple. They're against the law. It's no different than somebody using cocaine. If they're using steroids illegally, they're breaking the law. And whether it be football, as in the Alzado case, whether it be baseball, track, or wrestling, steroids are bad news. I went publicly a few years ago, about 4 years ago, with a huge poster with the FDA speaking out against steroids. And I tried them, and I went publicly about it. And I kind of find it humorous when you start hearing people saying they've never used them.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, don't insult my intelligence.
Well,
and don't insult the other people's intelligence. People are not as stupid as some people think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
And steroids are a major problem. They're very dangerous, and they need to be cleaned up, and some people need to make a stand and come clean and be honest about it.
Well, superstar Billy Graham out on the West Coast has had his problems after years of steroid abuse, and
Sure.
You look at a guy like Billy who was one of the top performers in his day, and now just not able to walk, and the sterility and all the other problems that has happened to him. You just really look at it and say, geez, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there are so many wrestlers and so many athletes in sports. What is going to happen to them? What's the future for these guys?
Well, you got to look at society in general, because in a way it's an indictment against our society, because the will to win and the will to be number one supersedes and takes over common sense. And so look at society as a whole. Nobody ever remembers who came in second.
That's right.
So as athletes, the will to win that is put into you at a very young age and pounded in you, you must win. First place, not just to compete. I felt great this year because I took part in the Special Olympics for the handicapped. And to me, that's the only true form of athleticism left today, because there you have people who are just thrilled to be able to compete rather than winning is irrelevant.
One of a kind, John.
Wow.
One of a kind.